The most anticipated open world gacha game, Wuthering Waves, has just released its second closed beta test, and having seen a lot of what the game has to offer, I genuinely believe this game is the Genshin Killer. And no, it's not another Tower of Fantasy. This game is better than Genshin in so many ways I don't even know where to start. Let's just start with the elephant in the room, the combat. So the combat is vastly different from Genshin's. So different that it's another genre of combat, specifically the Souls-like genre. For those that don't know, the Souls-like genre is a lot more punishing. Every hit you take matters a lot more. You can dodge in both Genshin and Wuthering Waves. However, there's things such as perfect dodging in Wuthering Waves, which is just like 10 times more satisfying. Executing a perfect dodge in Wuthering Waves slows down time, just like the dodges in Honkai Impact 3rd. Or their previous game, Punishing Grey Raven, that literally no one knows about. Which was also inspired by Honkai Impact 3rd, by the way. You can also parry in Wuthering Waves, which has basically been the staple of Souls-like since the very beginning. Just like perfect dodging, there's perfect parrying. Both feel extremely satisfying to execute and both are very rewarding. They've also added this quick time event mechanic called a Concerto skill, which makes your characters perform special skills upon switching to them. This adds an additional layer of depth many players have been asking for years. While Genshin never had this system, their older game Honkai Impact 3rd certainly did, which means they could have made the combat more interesting, but they decided not to cater to the casuals. Not that there's anything wrong with that, don't get me wrong. To be able to correctly battle your enemies, you also have to study their fighting patterns, which is common in Souls-like games. So you can't just constantly focus on yourself, you also have to focus on the enemy now. So there's a lot more skill involved, so to speak. Which is precisely what makes Souls-like games so addicting to the players. You don't need skill in Genshin, just run Hyper Bloom and you win. Anyone who spends money on Genshin is just doing themselves a disservice because the game is so easy. Especially with the inclusion of Hyper Bloom. Now I want to address a point that I've seen other creators mention. The reason why Wuthering Waves won't be able to kill Genshin, so to speak. Pointing precisely to the combat of the game, which is very complex compared to Genshin, of course, as I explained before. They say this genre is a niche and that not many people will actually be able to adapt themselves to this game. But here's my counterpoint. This game is obviously not going to be as hard as a Dark Souls game. Remember what game also wasn't as hard as Dark Souls and completely blew everyone away? Bringing the Souls genre into the mainstream? Yes, you guessed correctly, Elden Ring. At a time when not many games were releasing, everyone decided to give it a shot, and look what happened. It turned out to be one of the best-selling games of all time. Which is to say that I also expect an Elden Ring type of effect to happen with Wuthering Waves. I genuinely believe that people can put aside their brutal body pillow and actually give this game a go. Whether they're the type of player that picks mint or does resonance activities or goes into co-op, it doesn't matter. Whether they love Genshin or not doesn't matter. They will try this combat, they will get interested in it, and most will love it. Same thing goes for Elden Ring players, because it's almost the same genre besides the gacha and the story aspect. For them, this game would be a pretty good game to play in between Souls-like releases. They might stop saying "ew anime" every time they see gacha. Of course, I don't think they'd be as profitable as normal gacha players because they are used to facing the challenge and not using a pay-to-win option to surpass said challenge. Which brings us into the gacha aspect of the game. Whether you should spend money on Wuthering Waves is pretty nuanced actually, because the game is a skill-based game first and foremost. Someone bad at it may want to spend more, while someone good may want to spend less because they don't need it. The gacha system, which is literally just Genshin's system but like slightly better in terms of the characters, but is a lot better when it comes to the weapons. The 50-50 system is still there, but for character banners the pity is at 80, which is 10 less than Genshin's. And the chance to get a 5-star went up from 0.6 to 0.8, which is better than nothing, let's be honest. But on the weapon banner, you have a 100% chance of getting the featured weapon, which is absolutely insane. Keep in mind though, this is not automatically a W for Wuthering Waves. We don't know how generous they will be with the premium currency, like the Primo Gems in Genshin. They may be stingier, we cannot know that. I don't expect them to be stingier, especially due to their great track record of being generous. But let's be honest, it's hard to be stingier than Genshin, especially with the ongoing Lantern Rite reward drama. No, I genuinely expect Wuthering Waves to be a more generous game, especially because they listen to player feedback. Feedback? Is that a vegetable? Which brings us into the next point, the story. The story was honestly mid and is still honestly mid. At least from what I've seen and gathered from other people's opinions. So they did a dev interview with a few influencers in which they said they would change 90% of the story upon receiving negative feedback about it. Yet if this is the changed story, I don't think it will suffice either, though we'll have to see when the game actually releases. But here's one thing that will blow your mind. No matter how much the story sucks, there's a skip button. You can just skip it. Something Genshin refused to add to artificially increase playtime. Screw what the players think, right? We only give a damn about our investors. Anyways, having said that, hopefully everyone gives the right feedback and doesn't mislead the dev team. But wanting to improve the story and listen to player feedback is one of the things Genshin lacks, like really lacks. Genshin Impact's lore is amazing. Like, the lore is genuinely a lot more than you can expect from a gacha game especially, but when it comes to the storytelling itself, the things that you see in front of you, it's trash. At least until Fontaine, but that's another video for another day. But the thing that Genshin Impact never solved is the community feedback problem. They don't listen to jack. They literally got the lowest complaint handling rate in Q4 2023. Which truly shows how much they care about the consumer. Crazy how people still defend this business practice. You can ask all you want and they will not address the problems with the game. Like endgame, they don't care about veteran players. They don't care about giving you jack for rewards because they've festered such a community that will tell you that you're ungrateful just like me. That you have to accept every problem with the game because it's free. If you're someone that does this, you are promoting toxic positivity for no reason. Get back to reality because Eula is not your girlfriend, buddy. Anyway, so if the studio continues listening to feedback even after release, just like Honkai Star Rail, that is a great sign for the game's future. And if they don't stop listening to feedback upon amazing success, that will extend the game's lifetime by like, I don't know how many years, but it would be insane. Anyways, let's talk about echoes, the artifacts slash relics, the equipment that you give your characters in this game. Whatever stats they get is still RNG, just like Genshin or Honkai, but the main difference here is that they actually serve a purpose and are not just a stat stick. They are the coolest interpretation of equipment you could possibly imagine. As the name suggests, echoes are literally echoes of enemies. There are many different rarities of echoes you can obtain. You can either summon them or transform into them for a short time in a battle. Seeing as each enemy has its own abilities, you also have to give the ability to control them, which is actually crazy to think about. But get this, you can farm them in the open world without spending any stamina. You don't have to go into some stupid artifact domain anymore. Wanna know what else is crazy? And this is gonna blow your mind, but there is a shiny system in this game. You know the shiny system for Pokemon? Yeah, it's literally just that. A rare chance of getting a different colored echo. This actually gives you an incentive to constantly wander the open world in search of something but mint. So you know all those mint pickers and resonance activity idiots? They will always have something to do now, which will ease jumping ship by a lot. And while on the topic, let's talk about the open world and the art design, which they improved tremendously from the first beta test. Because Kuro Games actually listens to feedback, they were always trying to go for this post-apocalyptic look, but it always felt a little too gloomy. And now looking at it, it is incredible. It looks amazing. This proves that you can have a world that both looks vibrant and is still post-apocalyptic. Sure, hopping over from Genshin, it may seem a little darker than you'd like, It may not be the same as your comfort game, but it's still pretty good looking. Though one thing that should be said is that the open world needs to be more filled in my opinion. We don't want another Forspoken. But on the topic of traversing this open world, you can literally run up walls, bro. Climbing doesn't feel like a pain anymore. Lastly, they also redesigned some of the characters to look a lot better. I don't know what the hell happened here though. And now, coming to the conclusion, is this the Genshin Killer? And I'd have to say yes and no. Whether it is a Genshin Killer or not depends on your definition of a Genshin Killer. Tower of Fantasy was blatantly advertising themselves as a Genshin Killer, despite being completely different genres, despite being a mobile game MMO which are objectively trash. Completely different genre. The game was terrible. The game was bound to flop anyways. That BS Genshin Killer advertising got them popular for a month until people realized it was trash. So their definition didn't hold up. If you define this game as something that will make Genshin irrelevant, then you're wrong. That is a delusional take, as way too many people have this sunk cost fallacy. Yes, a lot of players do genuinely have sunk cost fallacy, meaning they don't want to quit because of the time they invested in it. The time they spent with Yaimiko. I saw people online saying, it's just Genshin 2.0 bro, there's no difference, besides the combat it's just the same. But what you don't realize is that having devs that actually respond to community feedback is super important. Maybe not to you if you're like this.
I love Oyo's shit.
Every time I see a Genshin survey, I laugh, because they don't give a damn in reality. It's just there to make them look good. It gives you nothing more than an illusion that they're actually listening to you. Yes, I said it. All those paragraphs you wrote, yeah, they went to deaf ears. Congratulations, you wasted your time. Alright, I'll admit, I also had this problem a year ago. I also didn't want to quit because I had spent like 1,000 hours on the game. And I can imagine it feeling even worse if you spent a lot of money on it. But quitting Genshin doesn't even mean you have to abandon the game. It just means not logging in for dailies and stuff. I'll be honest, I love doing the Archon quests when they come out. And I genuinely enjoy picking mint. Tastes like mint. But I do genuinely believe most people will get over it eventually. And the remaining idiots may stay sucking mint. But at the end of the day, Wuthering Waves will never make Genshin irrelevant. The only thing that will make Genshin irrelevant is Genshin itself. But if your definition of a Genshin Killer is simply overtaking Genshin Impact, then yes, I believe this game can overtake Genshin as the #1 gacha game. HSR has done it, and that's a completely different genre. It doesn't matter if it's made from the same company. I believe that provided they fix the bugs, provided they improve the story, provided they continue listening to player feedback, and most importantly, provided that Genshin continues to ignore player feedback, players finally wake up to the fact that there's a better game out there, then yes, it will overtake it. At least in a few years. But what will Navia think if she finds out I cheated on her? Oh, I don't know if I can leave Genshin. Oh no, I don't wanna disappoint her. Then continue being a pussy, Peter. No one cares. Only quality content here, folks. Subscribe, please.